So, Dad, now that I'm the Green Goblin, do you think I have a chance with Gwen Stacy?
Sorry, Harry, but no, I'm throwing her off a bridge and she's gonna die. Toodles.
Oh, well, alright, Dad. Wait, Norman, you're gonna do what? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Average Review. Today's the day, everyone, the 2-year anniversary of the Average Review series. And we're celebrating it by looking back at the old Toybiz Marvel Legends Onslaught Wave Green Goblin like I did in the first video, but also bringing in the Hasbro Marvel Legends Sandman Wave Green Goblin and comparing the two, seeing which one's the better goblin for your collection. Let's start off with the sculpting on these guys, and, let's start with the older one, the Toybiz Marvel Legends Green Goblin. This is hailed by many as probably the best Marvel Legends Green Goblin. It's not hard to see why. Let's start with the head sculpt. This is probably the most classic Green Goblin head sculpt we've ever gotten. I mean, it encapsulates Green Goblin as drawn by so many artists. The eyes are yellow and nicely painted, and the pupils are actually sculpted in and then painted. He's got a nice devious grin, those big ears, and the flopping, whatever you call this hood thing, in the air. Looks really nice and dynamic. Moving down the torso, and you can see a bunch of fabric tugs and wrinkles, but also some of the musculature peeking through. Same deal on the back of the torso. It's painted in a very dark reddish purple. I really think it looks good with the green on this figure. And I'd also like to mention, there is a belt on this guy, but it's not painted and also doesn't have that much detail. It's just kind of a band. Now, the green parts on this figure are really nicely sculpted. You can see all the scales on the arms and legs, but also, the musculature peeking through and still there. The gloves got a lot of love. Of course, you can see the same very dark purple with all the wrinkles and stuff, but you can see the stitching running through the sides of the gloves and to every single one of the fingers. I mean, that is just an amazing attention to detail. Now, one negative is that he's got these ball hips right here. They kinda look a bit ugly, but rest of the legs, very nice. He's got some really good, goblin boots with these points at the end, and he's got a pumpkin bomb attached to his hand, which is painted with this really nice metallic orange. It's also got this grumpy look on its face, which is painted pretty well. And, of course, the stem of the pumpkin. Although moving back, there's a bit of another negative with this figure. His proportions look a little strange, wouldn't you say? Let's bring out a slightly more modern Marvel Legends, His legs and arms seem a bit spindly for this torso, and that torso also seems a bit short compared to the arms and legs. Now, this doesn't ruin the figure. It still looks really nice, and, of course, for some people, it's the definitive classic Green Goblin, but I do want to bring it up. Now, moving on to the more modern Hasbro figure, it's fittingly a more modern Green Goblin design. Let's take a closer look at old Norman here, starting off with the head sculpt, and oh my god, it's horrific. I mean that in the best possible way. Let's go over, each part of this head sculpt, because there's a lot to say. Starting off with a staple of any Green Goblin design, the grin on his face. This might just be one of the creepiest Green Goblin faces I've just seen on anything. His teeth are sculpted in and they're all crooked and they're painted with this yellow shade and there's a bit of a dark shade of green for the inside of the mouth and the gums, and there's a lot of wrinkles on his face that makes him look even more like just a real guy, just with a disturbingly wide grin. And that realism extends to the rest of the parts of this mask. with this hood thing. The tassels are coming down. You can see the seam lines and those big ears, you know. But, of course, as Aunt May said in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, he has those horrible yellow eyes. And they've got some really nice, similarly even darker green around them. Moving down to the torso, we can see that the neckline for this Gabi shirt is actually painted instead of being sculpted like the Toybiz version was. But that doesn't mean it looks bad. I mean, the paint on the neck perfectly matches the head, and this body still has the musculature frame, while also keeping a bunch of the fabric tugs. Although, the musculature is peeking through more than on the Toybiz one, because you can actually see his six-pack coming through. Similar detailing on the back. And another thing this has above the Toybiz one is that the belt is not only sculpted, you know, similar to the Toybiz one, but it's also painted and has detailing and paint on the buckle. It is also a separate piece that can kind of be moved around the torso. Now let's move on to the scaling on his arms and legs, and oh my god, this might be better than the Toybiz one. Similar to the rest of the figure, it's more modern, more spiky and, you know, sticking out, and it's got a different shade of green from the neck and head. You know, that's like, you know, the rubber mask Green Goblin wears. It's a very dark green. This armoring is a metallic, shiny green, and it pops so well against the dark purple right here. He's got these wrinkly, wrapped up looking gloves, and there's a bit of extra sculpting and texturing on the hand to make it match those gloves. Similar to the arms, the legs are really well sculpted with all the scaling and that amazing metallic green. Moving down, he's got those superhero pirate-like boots, except, of course, he's got the Green Goblin, you know, point at the end, but they're a bit more, you know, torn up and wrinkled, you know, to give it that realistic flair. Now, I'm not 100% sure what this Green Goblin design is based off of, but to me it seems really similar to the Green Goblin from the Superior Spider-Man story where Doc Ock took over Peter Parker's body as Spider-Man. Specifically, this cover I'm showing on screen. I don't know. Something about how it looks just looks similar to me. Speaking of similarities, though, I'm pretty sure that this Green Goblin was based off of the Bucky Cat mold that was infamously reused, I don't know, about 100,000 times in the Hasbro Marvel Legends line. Seen here with this Hydra agent who's missing his belt and chest straps, so he just kind of looks weird. I mean, you can really see the similarity in how the legs are overall shaped. Of course, though, Green Goblin has all the scaling, you know, on his arms and legs, and also, you know, the less skin-tight, veiny torso. Now let's move on to articulation, in which both of these guys are very evenly matched, save for a few areas. Their heads are on disc hinges. Here they are looking up, which is pretty equal. And look down, with the Hasbro one faring a lot better in this department. But both their heads can spin all the way around, but Hasbro gets a bit of wobble around, which accompanied with this face just looks really creepy. They both have shoulders that can spin all the way around and lift up. Hasbro raises less than 90 degrees, while Toybiz raises a bit above. Although, hey, they both have bicep swivel, which allows their arms to turn around like so. They have double jointed elbows with a fairly equal bend, but I'd say Toybiz is a bit better. But here's where some of the differences start. Hasbro has fairly standard hands that spin around and hinge up and down. But Toybiz has a swivel at the forearm and hands that hinge up and down separately, along with a single joint which can turn this open hand into a kind of fist. There isn't much hand articulation on the hand with the pumpkin bomb, though, since that's kind of blocking it. Now, they both have an ab crunch, which lets them go forward, but for my Green Goblin, whenever I try to push his torso forward, it just goes back. Same story when it goes back, too, so I guess by default this guy wins, but also his waist cut is kind of stuck for me. Not for Hasbro, though. He gets spin around just fine. They have ball-jointed hips, with Hasbro having the higher kick, but Toybiz gets a perfect split. Hasbro has a thigh cut, which is well integrated into the sculpt. Toybiz also has a thigh cut at the ball joint, but it's slightly less well integrated, but the scaling does make it less noticeable. Double-jointed knees with a fairly equal bend. They both have boot cut rotation, which lets them spin around like so. Now, Toybiz, another difference, Toybiz can only hinge backwards and forwards, but it has an extra bend at the toe for some added posability, while Hasbro can only hinge forward and backwards, but also pivot, lacking the toe joint. I'd say that Toybiz does have more points of articulation and, some better range in certain areas, but overall it's a pretty equal match, actually. Now let's get to our comparisons, starting off with the standard male and female bodies we use for these Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. Now, the Hasbro Green Goblin does scale better with these two, but if you get either of them on the glider, midair, the differences in height won't really be that noticeable. But let's get some more younger Spider-Man, since the Green Goblin showed up in the first ever Spider-Man run, being the Steve Ditko drawn and later written version. Of course, to represent that, we have the Amazing Fantasy 15 Marvel Legends First Appearance Spider-Man, but we also have the Ultimate Spider-Man from the Ultimate Spidey vs. Vulture 2-pack, because, it's a younger, smaller Spider-Man. These actually both scale pretty well with these two versions. Granted, though, these guys don't really fit with Ultimate Spidey, since the Ultimate Green Goblin was a giant, spiky, hulking monster. But hey, we got a Toybiz Green Goblin here, so why not bring out some Toybiz Spider-Men? On the left, we have the Magnetic Spider-Man from their Spider-Man line in the 2000s, which uses mostly the Spider-Man Classics body and the Toybiz Urban Legends box set Spider-Man. Unfortunately, this thing's still alive. Although, hey, the Magnetic Spidey looks pretty good with both of these goblins. One last comparison with Spidey himself, the No Way Home Final Swingsuit Spider-Man. I mean, these guys don't really look like how Willem Dafoe was as the Green Goblin, but hey, if you want to have this guy as a classic comic Spidey, here he is with two comic Green Goblins. Although, out of all the Marvel Legends Green Goblins that, aren't based on Willem Dafoe, this is the most Dafoe-like one I've seen. Green Goblin was a very early Spidey villain, but he came later in the Steve Ditko run. For two earlier Steve Ditko Spidey villains, we have the Chameleon from the Hasbro Rhino wave on the left, and Dr. Octopus from the SPDR wave on the right. With how realistic both of these guys look while also maintaining, their comic look, I feel like you could slot in either Green Goblin with these guys. Let's also bring out another old foe of Spider-Man. Literally, he's an old man, being Vulture, specifically Ultimate Vulture that came in the same 2-pack as that Spider-Man. This is a more modern design, so I'd say it fits more with the modern Hasbro Green Goblin. Let's also bring out the Marvel Legends Scorpion. He works pretty well with both of them. Scorpion always kind of looks like this, so it's just whichever one you like more. There's more Spider-Man creators than Steve Ditko, of course. Let's bring in some villains made by the guy who immediately succeeded Steve Ditko, John Romita Sr. Here we have one of the most iconic villains he created for Spider-Man being the Rhino, from the Spider-Man Retro card. John Romita Sr.'s first issue was actually a Green Goblin story. In fact, it was the first issue that revealed Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, which Stan Lee claims was never Steve Ditko's plan, but Ditko refutes that fact. Personally, I believe Ditko. Stan Lee stole a lot of credit from artists and writers like Ditko and Jack Kirby. Let's also bring out another big, iconic Spidey villain from that era, the Kingpin, once again from the Spider-Man Retro card line. But let's skip forward even more to a now iconic Spider-Man villain, anti-hero, and ally, Eddie Brock, Venom. On the right, we have Venom from the Life Foundation 3-pack, and on the left, we have the Diamond Select Toys Marvel Select Anti-Venom. But let's bring out a much more evil symbiote, Carnage. Because not only is he a Spider-Man villain who shares the similar Bucky Cat mold to this Hasbro Green Goblin, but also because, well, fairly recently in the comics, I'd say 2018 around, Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, and the Carnage symbiote fused to make one of the most dangerous villains Spidey's faced in recent times, the Red Goblin, who actually got a Marvel Legends figure really soon after he appeared in the comic. But for an ally of the Goblin that you'd probably never expect, we have the Incredible Hulk. Yes, in the Green Goblin's first appearance, he weaponized the Hulk against Spider-Man because Hulk was just sleeping in a cave that Spider-Man happened to come up across. So starting off, we have the Toybiz Hulk Classics War Hulk. I think in terms of size, this is probably the best fit for the Hulk in that story. For a bit of reference, here's the Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man from earlier. The Endgame Professor Hulk Build-A-Fig. I'm just bringing this out because I haven't really shown him much, and I think it's a pretty good body with a very boring head sculpt. And the modern Hasbro Hulk body. This is the Maestro Deluxe figure, but with the extra head from the 20th Anniversary Hulk. Let's also bring out the comic and movie versions of the Iron Patriot armor. Now, in the movies, it's James Rhodes' War Machine, but in the comics, the Iron Patriot was an alias used by Norman Osborn, who we've been taking a good look at for a while now. But there's one thing that this Iron Patriot came with that I want to see on these two bodies. Can't really swap them with the Toybiz, though. The alternate Norman Osborn head. Now, I've shown this off in my Cabal 3-pack review video, but what I hadn't shown is that comic head on the movie body. This would actually be really interesting for an MCU what-if story, you know? And just for fun, here's the Green Goblin head on the movie and comic versions of the Iron Patriot. And as is tradition, here's both Green Goblins with Hit Monkey and Goliath. Now, let's talk about the accessories these two come with. They both come with a Goblin glider, although I don't have the Toybiz one, unfortunately. The Hasbro one is a pretty nice classic Goblin glider. His feet just kind of slip in there and boom, he's on his glider. He also comes with a pumpkin bomb. It's got, a nice bright orange with these green flames and, green insides. Unfortunately, it doesn't really, stick in his hand very well, but if you, either get, a bit of sticky tack or, try really hard, you can get the pumpkin bomb to stick in, which I think is better than the way Toybiz did it. You know, it stays in his hand, but it's glued in there. You can't really remove it or anything. He's just stuck with that. In terms of which pumpkin bomb I prefer in terms of looks, though, I'd say the Toybiz one is better because of the metallic color palette and also larger size. But they both came with the Green Goblin's bag. Now, I only have the Hasbro one. I'm missing the Toybiz one since I got him loose, but the Hasbro one is very nice. The paints match his belt, you know, that pinkish purple, and also that, the metallic gold for the belt buckle looks pretty nice. It just sort of, you know, goes, you know, over his head, under his arm. It's a pretty nice accessory. Both of these figures came with Build-A-Figure pieces. Green Goblin had part of the Onslaught Build-A-Fig, and the Hasbro one came with 2 heads for the Sandman Build-A-Figure, and these are fantastic looking. I kind of wish I had them, but also I don't have any other pieces for the Sandman Build-A-Fig, and these would look way too big on the retro card version, so Although I'd like to mention that the Toybiz glider came with a stand too, and it was packed in with a comic book, which, honestly, if modern Marvel Legends were packed in with comic books at the same price they are now, well, I'd go bankrupt within like a month. But hey, let's wrap this video up with the 2 final points for the review. The price and my overall rating. Now, you can get both of these guys loose on eBay for between $30 to $50. That is pretty pricey, I gotta say. Especially for just, you know, a single figure, but Green Goblin's in high demand because he's the Green Goblin. Now, I think I got the Toybiz Green Goblin for around $28, and I got the Sandman Wave version for around $25. If you find these guys for cheaper than that, or, you know, you're willing to spring on those prices, then go for it. These are both some of the best Green Goblins you can get, especially in terms of the comic versions. Now, in terms of my personal preference, I prefer the Sandman Wave Green Goblin. I think that overall, the Toybiz one is objectively better as, you know, a general Green Goblin, but something about the creepiness of the Hasbro one's face and also, you know, the more improved anatomy and sculpting along with the metallic color scheme on most of the greens brings it up as my personal favorite. Although I'm gonna be nice and give both of these guys a deserved 9 out of 10. Now, before I end this video, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been watching my average review series or even non-average review videos. You guys are one of the many reasons I keep doing this. Another reason, I just do it for fun. I like talking about action figures, and you know, videos reviewing them are probably the easiest way to do this. So like I said earlier, thank you, and have a wonderful day, because you deserve it.